It's my pleasure to introduce to you Petra Smith. So Petra works at Aura Information Security, and she's going to be talking about the incident response plan that saved Christmas. Let's welcome her.
First of all, I just want to thank all of the sponsors that made this happen and all of the volunteers who have put in the time for this conference and all of you for turning up. This will be, I hope, a gentle start to the second day of the first AppSec New Zealand days. Really, I just want to show you my holiday slides from the before times. I just want to show you some holiday photos. It's relaxing, it's nice. So I want to take you back to my last tropical vacation, back in the before times. It was the Christmas break, 2019, and I found myself with cancelled plans and non-refundable flights to Cairns in tropical far north Queensland. I decided to make the most of this situation. So for some context, there are some things you should know about me. I am, shall we say, well, some people like to say stubborn. Let's go with determined. I'm a nature witch. I love animals, and animals seem to love me. Apparently I'm not allowed to get a parrot of my own. I'm also a keen snorkeler and take any opportunity to get in the sea. I've been on several trips to Pacific Islands and tropical places where I had these plans to swim with sea turtles, but the sea turtles weren't there that day. So when I've got these flights to tropical Queensland, okay, this is my chance. This is my chance to swim with turtles. So I did my research, and I found out that Fitzroy Island, as you can see from this highly realistic lenticular postcard from the gift shop, is a turtle sanctuary, and so it often has recently released turtles or turtles who sort of made that their home, coming up really close to the shore, so it's a great place to see them just while snorkeling. You don't need dive equipment, you don't need to go out on the water to see them, you can just swim off the beach. Great, this sounds like a holiday for me. Something else you should know about me. I'm a professional catastrophizer. If you saw my talk last year at OWASP Day, you'll know that my favorite non-rhetorical saying is, what's the worst that could happen? So I did more research to find out all of the things that could do me harm in the Australian waters, and it turns out it's a long list. There's salties, there's sharks. Oh yeah, they just call saltwater crocodiles salties, like they're very casual about it. Salties and sharks and stingrays and octopuses and snakes and sea snails and even sponges. So basically, there's a lot of things that can do you harm, but the most dangerous to swimmers is stingrays. Sorry, not stingrays, jellyfish. Stingers, again with the cute names for deadly things. There are two species of jellyfish in the Australian waters that can potentially kill you. Both species of box jellyfish. And some of the islands and the beaches have stinger nets, which is basically just big mesh net around to stop the jellyfish being able to get in, but they don't have them around the turtle sanctuary because the turtles wouldn't be able to get in and out. So, okay. I kept doing my research because I was really determined, and found out that there's these things called stinger suits, which are basically giant lycra onesies. They have a hood, and they have booties, and they have mittens, and you're completely covered except for a little face hole, so that you can go in the water and you're protected. If something does sting you, it can't get through the thick lycra. Great, so I've hired my stinger suit. I pop down to the hire shop and I get my stinger suit and my flippers and my snorkel and mask. And I also hire an underwater camera because I thought, wow, you know, I might see something really exciting. Maybe I want to get one from duty free on my way home, so I'll just get one from the hire shop, try it out, see if underwater photography is for me. So never done it before. Turns out I'm really bad at it, so the photos, I'm sorry, aren't great. But I had a lot of fun, seeing some interesting fish in the water there. Not exactly teeming with them, and the water's a bit murky, but there are some really interesting kinds of coral there if you're a coral nerd. The big round ones, the plate corals and the boulder corals, they only grow they grow millimeters a year. So some of these ones were sort of a meter across, which means that they're hundreds and hundreds of years old. So that was pretty exciting to see. Also saw some lovely soft corals, if anyone's sort of, into the Finding Nemo sort of buzz. There's some of it there. And I'm floating along with my camera, finally getting the hang of it, and I see some baby giant clams. Now, these are really endangered because humans keep poaching them. And you can see there a little glint of the phosphorescent blue there in the mouths, which is a whole fascinating science that one day I just want to give a talk all about that, but so I'm excited. Wow, these baby clams, and they're responding to the motion in the water. You can see the phosphorescent. This is amazing. And then I felt something. I felt this little series of, felt like tiny electric shocks or hot needles just in a line across my chin, which is about the only part of me at this point that's exposed. I don't have a photo of the jellyfish that stung me because I didn't see it coming, but it looked probably something like this file photo. So there are two species of box jellyfish, one sort of dinner plate size and the other is irukandji, is about the size of your thumbnail, and translucent, so often you don't see them, but they have these long tentacles with these little rows of stings. And I'd known in my research that now I had to take action pretty quickly because these things are potentially one of the deadliest things in Australian waters. So I knew I needed to neutralize that sting. And the first thing I needed to do was to get back to shore. Now I had swum around a couple of bays to see these giant corals, and so I had to get myself, find where the shore was and swim back as calmly as possible, because the way that these jellyfish kill you is by raising your heart rate so much that it basically explodes. So I had to try to not elevate my heart rate, not panic, not flail in the water or swim too fast, just glide back to shore very calmly. And then once I was there, I had to find a stinger station, which is just a plastic crate full of bottles of vinegar. Now, I wasn't on a familiar beach at that point, so I knew where the stinger station was when I came in. I had to find one nearby, and I'm asking locals, people who are on the beach, have you seen the stinger station? Where's the nearest one here? And they're all staring blankly, because apparently these people weren't catastrophists, hadn't looked up all the things that could harm them. So I had to walk around till I found a campsite that had some there and poured it on my face. And then when I sat in the jetty and just waited, I knew that basically you've got about 40 minutes where it will either make your heart explode or you're fine. So there's really no way to know until it happens, so I just had to sit there and wait it out. And then, check and watch, okay, cool. Time, like it's all clear, I'm fine, heart beating normally. I think it's safe for me to get back in the water. So I went back down to a different beach from the one I'd gone into, and before I went back in, I checked where the stinger station was for this one, and I got back in and swam out a bit, and waiting for me was this fellow. And this opportunity wouldn't have arisen if I hadn't done my research and known what to expect in this situation, when I could decide it was all clear, and decide it was safe to get back in. They're really beautiful. It was so worth it. And the next day I decided to go to the tropical rainforest instead and hang out with some birds, except the little pink galah kept biting me every time I stopped petting her. So the next day, okay, I think I've got this now, and decided to head out to a different island that did have a big stinger net around it, Green Island, and have another go. A little bit more, a little bit less adventurous, sort of calmer excursion. And so when I'm reflecting on this and why I felt safe doing this thing that I knew, I had personal experience that this thing could harm me, why I felt safe getting back in the water so quickly, I realized I'd basically created an incident response plan without even realizing it. And I was able to act on that plan when I needed to. I'm a big fan of incident response plans. I talk a lot about them in my day job as a security consultant. They're basically a guidebook. They don't have to be prescriptive, but they give you a guide to unfamiliar territory. They help you avoid pitfalls and make the most of your adventure. Try new things out in a safe way, because you know that if you try it out and it's not for you, you've got some contingency plans in place, and you're ready for what comes your way. So it always is a little bit frustrating when I talk to organizations, especially startups, and they tell me, oh, but we don't need a plan. No, we're just, if something happens, we're all smart, we all know the stack, we'll just get people in a room and figure it out. I'm here to tell you that, yeah, you need a plan. If your incident response plan is to get in a room and figure it out, you really need something a little bit more rigorous. Because a plan helps make sure that the different people in your team have the same idea about what's going to need to be done. It helps you to make important decisions when customers or more senior people in the business are screaming at you to hurry up and fix it, this is intolerable, can't you just get it back up online? How could this possibly have happened? It allows you to remain calm under pressure. It helps you to make sure that you've got the things ready for you before you need them, and helps you to get yourself unstuck and know when it's safe to move on to the next step and decide that you've resolved an incident. So I guess we should probably go over what is in an incident plan. You can have big elaborate ones that have flow diagrams and checkboxes and sort of like everything's all laid out for you and very prescriptive, but really it doesn't have to be so onerous. It's better to have something than nothing. So at its absolute basic building blocks, plan is just basically a sort of a life cycle of what you do when bad things are afoot. And it starts with preparation. It starts with working out what risks you're exposed to, what you're going to do about them, and making sure that you've got the resources you're going to need, like you've got backups that you can restore from, things like that. The next step, once you actually discover that there is an incident, hopefully you've got the tools in place to allow you to do that. You can find out something is amiss, decide that it is a security incident and not just a weird bug, and you can have a process for finding out what's involved in that. Basically, there's a lot of coming up with hypotheses that you'll be testing as, what could this be? Is this the extent of it? Is there more? The next important step, so this investigation phase normally goes on through the process. You might have to try a few things and discard a few hypotheses, but the containment phase is really about buying yourself some time. It's about stopping the unwanted activity. So, if someone's account's compromised, you probably want to change the password on that account. Stop the thing that's actually happening, isolate the system that's been affected, go and do some stakeholder management and keep those people who are going to be beating down the door from bothering you while you do your work. And then you can actually spend the time, concentrate on removing the problem, remediating your systems, repairing the damage that an attacker might have left, and leaving the system so that when you do put it back online again, the same thing's not going to happen again. So you're strengthening it against however it was vulnerable. And then the cleanup phase, recovery, getting back to business, confirming that that thing that you put in place has worked and it hasn't had any unintended consequences. You don't have performance issues as a result of that fix. Often there'll be some post-incidents of monitoring just to make sure that everything's working smoothly. And then your communications to other people, your sort of post-incident cleanup usually involves telling everybody that's been resolved so that they know to stop bothering you about it. And then, very importantly, never leave this one out, is the stage at the end where you reflect and improve, because these processes get better with time, especially if you're a smaller team and you've got something that's perhaps less structured and less sort of formal. You really want to have a process where you're learning and improving as you go. The good news is this whole process is about as easy as planning for a tropical vacation. I say that as a person who likes to plan my tropical vacations with 15-minute chunk itineraries. But if you're a person who, for some reason, likes to go on holiday to relax, I guess that's an option. then the complexity is up to you. So just like any good vacation, we want to start with who we're going to invite along. You know, who's going to be there, what their role in this operation is going to be. You probably want to appoint someone to be the lead for an incident. You know, building things by consensus is great, except in a crisis, then you want someone who can break a tie. So appoint someone who's going to be the decisive person, coordinate all the parts, make sure that things have been done, and make sure that that person knows that that's their role in this. You probably want to appoint a person who's going to run interference or be the contact person for you and all the people who aren't involved in incident response, so that the people who are actually doing those investigation and containment and the eradication of the damage in your systems aren't being constantly distracted by people saying, are we there yet, are we there yet? And potentially someone else who's going to have the dedicated role of managing customers if it's a product that's being used by the public or by, especially if you've got clients that you've got relationships with. So defining those roles, assigning them to specific people means that you're all ready to go. Second step, my favourite, do your research. Find out all the things that can harm you. Do your risk and your threat analyses and identify your risks and work out what could possibly go wrong, and use that as a basis for deciding what you're going to need, what resources you're going to need. You probably want to have a chat with the business and see if they've got any contractual requirements to get things back online at a certain time, or they're going to say after paying penalties, or if they've got specific time frames for recovery or amount of data they're prepared to lose, so that you can then point to that figure and say, well, we're within those targets. So, so they can't turn around and say, well, any outage or any loss was unacceptable to them. And of course, you should know your legal landscape. These days, a lot of areas, New Zealand included, have mandatory disclosure to people whose personal data you might have been responsible for breaching. So it's good to know what those are in advance so that you can make sure that your plans are able to meet those obligations. And then we want to know how we're getting from A to B. So this can be, again, you can be really prescriptive about it, or you can just wing it on the day and just know how you're going to get from one phase to the next. How are you going to decide that this is an incident and not just a regular issue? How sensitive are you going to be when making that call? How are you going to decide that it's been contained, that you're ready to turn systems back on? Having those sort of gateways and those sense checks defined as a bare minimum is a really useful way to make sure that you've got something you can refer to when you get caught in that analysis paralysis. Because quite often what happens is we all like to, in stressful situations, wait until we've got all the information, and can make a judgment call in a perfect world where we know everything and nothing is going to catch us by surprise, and that's really not going to happen in a high pressure, sort of dynamic, time-constrained situation. So knowing how you're going to decide it's good enough, we're comfortable enough with this fix being the right one for us, and what can we do if it's not, how do we roll it back, but how do we move forward, is going to help you to progress as rapidly as possible, but also as safely as possible. And then you want to make your packing list. What are you going to need in order to do this? What logs do you need to have? What monitoring do you need to have in place? What backups do you need? How are you going to make sure that people are reporting suspicious things to a help desk or to a person, so that you're actually going to find out when an account's potentially being compromised? So all of those things that you might need, you can't necessarily put a backup in place after that system, that data has been lost. So you need to have that beforehand. Knowing what you're going to need means you can put that in place before you have an incident. And then you want to make sure that everybody is ready for this adventure. Make sure that everybody who's got a role knows about their role. Make sure that the prerequisites are in place and that they're working and that you can use the tools you've got, that everyone's got the capabilities and the access and everything they might need. And the most important part, especially if you're doing if you've got a sort of just just the right size for your small organisation. Incident response plan, you want to practice it. You want to practice it until it becomes muscle memory, it becomes instinctive. You can practice it by just sitting around a table playing walkthrough. Do we have any Dungeons and Dragons fans in the house? Yes, I love this. Do we have any Dungeons and Dragons Dungeon Masters in the house? Yes, okay. Doing a scenario, an unfolding scenario with some sort of confounding factors as if it was a D&D campaign is a great way to test people's capability, and it doesn't even feel like work. So when you go back to the office, bring out the D20s and get everyone involved in a game of incident response. And when you've got specific tools, it's really useful to do some practices for can we actually do the tools work? Are we familiar with them? Can we actually do the hands-on stuff as well? So you want layers of different types of practice, and you want to do it often, and you want to learn things from it and improve as you go. And then you can relax, or not. You can go forth, and you are ready to handle what this adventure throws at you. The more you practice, the more instinctive this becomes, and the more that you can do it without having to constantly refer to the plan. The most important thing, I think, is be prepared for it, and then do your incident response, your practices, your actual live incidents, if and when you need to, but always take that time to reflect and improve and learn from how things went. Practice some self-criticism, develop things so that you get better and better, and that never waste an opportunity. So, in summary, yes, you do need a plan. Even if you're an organisation, if you're a team of 2, you need a plan. It doesn't have to be a huge, onerous, highly bureaucratic document, but you need something to make sure you're on literally the same page about how you're going to handle something. Start small, iterate, make sure that you work out what you're going to need in advance, because some things, like a toothbrush, you can buy when you, find you've left it behind, but some things you really need to have prepared in advance. Practice it often, make it muscle memory, make it part of ordinary business culture. Play those Dungeons and Dragons role-play scenarios with some realistic incidents. And I cannot stress this enough, the ABCs of security: always be catastrophizing. One day it might lead you to the opportunity to live your dreams and swim with sea turtles, or whatever it is that you want to do most in life. Yeah, that's it, that's me. Thank you. I think we've got some time for questions.
Thank you very much, Petra. It'd be great if anyone has any questions. I think we have time for a few.
I have a question about when you went to the forest, you do research on threats in the forest as well?
Sorry?
Did you do research on threats in the forest?
Oh, yes.
So the question was asking Petra if, when she went to the forest, if she did research into the threats in the forest as well.
Yes, it was a rainy day when I went to Kurunda Rainforest, and so I decided to stay to the tourist attractions because it was basically snake weather. Oh yeah, there's a lot of things in that country that can do you horrible, horrible harm. I did get to pet a dingo, so yeah.
A wild dingo?
Oh, okay. So next year I'll tell you the story about how I petted a dingo.
Okay, well, please join me in thanking Petra again for a wonderful talk.